statue of Ramses II. This statue depicts the famous pharaoh Ramses II seated on a throne. It is made of granodiorite, a dark stone that is very difficult to carve, and the statue is positioned on a plinth about 70 centimeters high. For 2 centuries, this statue has been one of the main symbols of the Museo Egizio in Turin. It was even admired by the decipherer of hieroglyphs Jean-François Champollion, who described it as the Egyptian Apollo of the Belvedere. He was referring to the 2nd century CE statue, which was famous for being considered as one of the most beautiful works in antiquity. This very detailed and expertly carved statue of Ramses II is about 2 meters tall and just over 1 meter in depth. From the size of his feet, wearing elegant sandals, we understand that all the parts of the pharaoh's body are sculpted in proportion to each other. Ramses II's mummy, housed in the National Museum of Egyptian Civilization in Cairo, shows evidence of the pharaoh's extraordinary height. He was about 1 meter and 70 centimeters tall, and also lived for an extremely long time, dying in his 90s. He wears a full-body tunic that is finely carved. It is a long garment with thin vertical pleats reaching down to his ankles, widening at the front into an apron of sorts. On this apron, there is a vertical inscription in hieroglyphs listing the pharaoh's titles and attributes. Knotted on the king's chest is a shawl that covers his shoulders and left arm. His left hand rests on his thigh and is clenched into a fist, holding a small cylinder shape called a mekes, identified as a papyrus scroll or a kind of case. On the pharaoh's right arm, near his bicep, the shawl cape forms a sort of winged triangular sleeve. Following the position of the arm, you will notice that it is folded across the pharaoh's chest. In his right hand, he holds a scepter with a large hook at the top. This is called a heka and is a symbol for ruling over Egypt. The style of the face is typical for the time, the first 20 years or so of this pharaoh's long reign. He has a thin, pronounced nose, high cheekbones, and small ears with pierced earlobes. On the pharaoh's head is an elongated round crown with protruding ridges on the sides. It is known as the kepresh, also referred to as the blue crown, because the real ones were decorated with copper discs which over time developed a typical greenish-blue tone. In the center of the statue's forehead is the uraeus, or rearing cobra, in an upright position, ready to attack and spit its venom onto the pharaoh's enemies. This kind of headdress is depicted in battle scenes, but also in ceremonies and celebrations, perhaps indicating the pharaoh's military power. Moving back to the lower part of the statue, the block-shaped throne where the pharaoh is seated has a low backrest and a long back pillar to support the statue. Engraved on the pillar are 2 columns of hieroglyphs that run down the pharaoh's back. On both sides of the throne, the symbol of the union between Upper and Lower Egypt is carved. It is the Sematawi, formed of intertwined papyrus and lotus stems. Returning to the front, to the sandals of the king's feet, with their slightly pointed soles, you will notice that under them are 9 hieroglyphic symbols. They are all the same and depict archery bows used in war. The expression 9 bows in the Egyptian language indicates all people from foreign lands. In this statue, they are represented as being defeated by the pharaoh. Behind Ramses II's tunic, on either side of his calves, there are 2 small figures that are almost hidden. On the king's left is his chief wife, Nefertari. The queen wears a long wig with the typical crown of Isis, graced with 2 tall cow's horns framing a sun disk, and 2 long ostrich feathers. In her left hand, she holds an arched scepter, and with her right hand, she embraces her husband's leg. On the right, there's the figure of their eldest son, Amunher Khepeshef. The prince in line for the throne has his head shaved, with only a lock of hair on the right side. He holds a fan with a long ostrich feather in his right hand and touches his father's leg with his left hand. Both figures wear the same type of clothing and sandals as the pharaoh, but are distinguished by their hairstyles and the objects in their hands. The small size of these figures, although very important, gives even more emphasis to the mighty power of the king. A final interesting note is that on the left side of the king's throne, there's also a modern inscription in French showing evidence of the statue's discovery by the sculptor Jean-Jacques Ruiffaut, who was working for Bernardino Drobetti in Thebes in 1818.